Hello, welcome back. Let's adjust you a little bit. Yes, it's been a couple of weeks, isn't it? Because I was busy last week. Sorry, folks. I was getting a chassis for Bob. I had to drive. Well, there's a video on it on the Bob video, but I had to drive over to Carmarthen to a chap called Trade Post Wales. He's on eBay. But anyway, he's he breaks mainly more modern Range Rovers, discos and stuff these days because the classics are getting a bit hard to come by. But no, he had a 1988 chassis, arse end of which is perfect for Bob. So that was all day Thursday. All day Tuesday I was out helping a chap strip an engine down, which is currently in for engineering, which is good. And then Friday I was off home. Went home because King Boris said I could. And cheers. Boris said I could. So I thought I was going to go home and see my missus. Go and stay in my first home rather than my second home. And yeah, it's my wedding anniversary as well. Happy anniversary, missus. She'd have got less if she'd murdered me on our wedding night, I tell you. Anyway, it's the old wedding joke. Sorry, folks. Jokes as old as the hills. My face station. I don't know. Anyway, it was nice to see her. And then back down to Devon this week, back onto Bob. Hopefully going to see the customer who wants to buy Red Shed on Sunday. And then back home the weekend after. That's been, what, last week? Anyway, I'm rambling now about life, and that's just boring, I'm afraid. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bit of feedback about these sessions, which I'm pleased about. One of the things has been, you need to have a Q&A session. Well, there's not that many questions, I'll be honest. I've had a couple of questions like, what's the melting point of your flat cap? Not as high as you would have thought. And what was the other question I had? Oh, yeah, can't be repeated. Thanks for that. So, yeah, if you want to bung questions into these sessions, I'll put kind of a reminder out when I'm going to do a beer and bollocks. Fire me questions. I'll answer pretty much anything. I think the first one of these was set up because people were asking me where I got my knowledge from. So yeah, questions, any questions you want. And so one of the things that did come in was someone wanted to know about my mishaps. I've had a few disasters over the years. So why don't we use this session for that, I reckon. What do you reckon? Let's go through that. So, I mean, as you know, I've been messing around with cars and lawnmowers and God knows what else for as long as I can remember. You know about the mishaps with the Suffolk Colts. We don't need to go there again. You know about the mishap with my first car, the Anglia, with the big end bearings. Don't worry, Stuart. It got me into cars. Might have been main bearings, I don't know. I mean, there was a few things that kind of... I mean, my brother had to... My brother's had way more mishaps than me, but none of his are mechanically orientated, but I've often been there to kind of help him fix his cars. Worst job I've ever done. Bearing in mind I've done transfer boxes on Range Rover Classics. Worst job ever has to be Citroen BX front subframe. What a bastard of a job. My brother, he loved these things. This is back 1980s, early 1990s. It wasn't that long after they stopped making them. In fact, my mum had a brand new one. My brother had a B reg, which would have been 1983, 84. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yeah, he used to drive enthusiastically, did my brother. And yeah, he might have clouted a curb and shortened one side of the subframe quite significantly. Anyway, he went off to Citroen because I said, no, I'm not doing it. Because I fixed too many of your bloody cars for you. So I wasn't going to do it. I was being a miserable, grumpy bastard. And then he said, oh, go on. And eventually I said, look, Adrian, my mate, and I will do it, but we kind of want £100 to do it. Which is reasonable, I thought. It's a lot of money, but still. And my mother, tore me a strip because of it. But then he took it off to Citroen because he was convinced he could get the job done cheaper at Citroen. And the part was, I don't know, the part was something like 80 quid. It was dirt cheap, quite a big component. You know, obviously the front subframe connects the front chassis rails and the floor pan for the monocoque, and the engine sits on it, and the suspension hangs off it. And you know, it's the centre of a Citroen BX. But I think Citroen wouldn't even quote him on it. But they said, to be honest, by the time we've drawn up the quote, it's going to be 4 numbers, 4 digits. You're not going to be interested. The car's worth 200 quid. Get a new one. So I ended up doing this job for him because I felt sorry for him. Never again. Never again. It was just an evil, evil, evil job. Dreadful fucking job. I mean, I could probably do an entire session on my brother's cars, but I probably need to have a chat with him first of all, because it's really kind of talking about him rather than me and my mishap. So let's not talk about my brother and his cars, because that was the worst job I ever did on a car ever. I'd probably do another one, but no, I probably wouldn't actually. In all honesty, I used to go to breakers yards, scrap yards quite a lot. There was Atkinson's breakers yard at Collier's Wood, for those that would know. And I pretty much spent every weekend in that bloody breakers yard, climbing over piles of cars, retrieving bits for Anglias and TR7s and Triumph 1500 TCs and other odds and sods, Rover P6s, all sorts of odds and sods. And one of the more memorable mishaps came, I was working on the the second car in a teetering pile of 4 cars stacked one on top of each other. Second car was an Anglia, and I needed the front brake back plates off it. And it was a piece of cake, really. I got the drum off it and everything like that, and I was stripping it all down, and I was undoing the bolts on the back of the hub to shift the back plate, and someone came along wanting the engine out of the car on the top of the pile. So one of the chaps was there with the grabber to lift the car off, and he was like, I stepped back, said, go on, lift it off. He said, no, don't worry, you finish your job first and then we'll lift it. And I think, well, I'm going to be half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever. So I started working a bit quicker, conscious that I was holding this other job up, even though they said, no, finish yours, we're quite happy to sit here. Probably meant they weren't doing something else at the same time. Anyway, so I started rushing the job, and what I ended up doing was the spanner slipped, and I ran that baby finger, there's a nice big scar right across the back of it, along the jagged chrome strip along the gutter on the car below, and not quite to the fingernail, but it took like half the width of the finger off, and it was hanging down. Fucking hell. Wrapped a tissue paper around it, finished the job off. Stupid, eh? That was a mess. That was a stitch job, that was. Yes, but the nerves work in it, unlike this one. So that was kind of the kind of... I was regularly hurting myself fixing cars. And every time you hurt yourself, you think, that was a bit stupid, I won't do that again. But I keep hurting myself in different ways. I think, you know, when you're dealing with cars, they are, you know, being a mechanic is quite a dangerous thing, really. There's all sorts of things that you can catch yourself out. I mean, losing knuckles on Austin Allegro radiators, because when you're undoing the spark plugs, you run your knuckles, these fellas here, across the radiator matrix. So I've lost a fair few of those. Undoing the front hub nut on my mum's Allegro, it was the driver's side. It was reverse threaded, if I remember rightly. It must have been reverse threaded, because I had well, basically, they should be done up to about 200 and something foot-pounds. So we thought, we'll undo this to the breaker bar. That'll be a piece of cake. I think it was, I was pretty sure I was there with Stuart, my mate Stuart. Hello, Stuart. And I can't remember how we got onto this, but we ended up getting a big breaker bar with a bloody big socket on it, and then a scaffold bar, and then me straddling the scaffold bar in order to get this thing loose. And I'm pretty sure it was Stuart, decided to hit the scaffold bar with a 10-pound hammer while I was straddling it. You can imagine, can't you? Fucking hell. Brought tears to my eyes. Oh, I was a castrato for at least 3 weeks. Did undo the nut though. It went crack, and I'm not sure whether, you know, the pain going through my groin or me hitting the ground with this bar underneath me hurt more. I think it was the pain going through my groin. Oh, it was miserable. Not quite sure what I was hoping to achieve by straddling it. But anyway, I learned from that. Don't straddle scaffold bars. Certainly don't allow your mate to have a £10 hammer while you're straddling her. It's just too tempting, I know. That was that Allegro. We did an engine build on that because although it was really low mileage, I think the previous owner had just basically driven it like 2 miles and then from cold and then turned it off. I left it for a day and driven it another 2. So the whole thing was absolutely shagged down. A-series engine, 1.3 it was. Allegro Estate. I really like Allegro Estates. I think they're a good design. I know there's people out there that say the popular noise that comes out of a lot of people about Allegros is they're shit. They're not really. They're a bit shit, but they're not really shit. And I think that most of the people that do say they're shit have never seen one. Or they've watched Top Gear or something, I don't know. Anyway. Steering wheel. I had a good one with the steering wheel. So my sister loved her Moggy Miners. She had a 1956 split screen 4-door, which I said was a good car, but it wasn't really. Bodily, it was quite good. Mechanically, it was shit. It was just a bit, so it had the wrong distributor and it had no temperature gauge. It overheated. This is the car that broke the crankshaft. But I was trying to get the steering wheel off it for one reason or another, and I can't remember exactly why I was getting it off. But I know how to get a steering wheel off now because I learned the hard way, and this is not how to get them off. So you undo the nut a little bit, and you just give yourself, don't take the nut right off the shaft on the centre, and that's when you kind of wiggle the steering wheel. Now I decided I was going to take the nut right off, and I was going to give it some heave-ho, have my knees behind it. Anyway, this fucking steering wheel came off, and the rim of the steering wheel hit the bridge of my nose up here, at about Mach 3, I reckon. Now, luckily the door was open. I just was violently ill. Everywhere. Oh my God, I was seeing stars. That's probably the most painful accident that I've ever given myself. I did another thing similar on my Range Rover. I was underneath it trying to take the steering box. Well, I was taking the steering box. I wasn't trying. It's the green car that I scrapped. I was taking the steering box off and I was lying underneath it. And the wrench slipped off the bolt and I managed to clip the bridge of this eye with the tip of the wrench. It gave me a real shiner black eye. That had me seeing stars, but even that wasn't as painful as a steering wheel hitting the bridge of your nose. So if you ever think that, you can drive without a seatbelt on your car, I can tell you now, hitting the steering wheel is fucking painful. Very painful. So that was probably the most painful of all the incidents. We talk about disasters on cars. When I've taken something apart and it hasn't quite gone the way I wanted it to go. There's probably loads of those. I mean, most of them working with old British cars, you see a tiny little hole about the size of your tip of your finger, and you go at it with a screwdriver and you've got a hole like this. Did a few bodges. I've done a few bodges on my own cars. Never on anyone else's. I had my dad had a company car. It was a Sierra. When Sierras first came out, because this one was A-Reg, and it was a 2-litre gear company car. Fucking lovely it was. God, it was like a spaceship inside. It's when Sierras were deeply unpopular because everyone wanted a Cortina box. Nothing wrong with Cortina boxes, but the Sierra really kind of was a pivotal moment in British car design, that was. Curvy cars. You didn't have to design a car with a ruler. Anyway, he owned this car a company car for 3 years and eventually bought it off the company dirt cheap. And he was going to sell it on. And my mum had a friend who wanted it. And my mum just happened to let on the price that my dad had paid for it. So he didn't make a penny out of it, but never mind, he helped them out. He honoured my mum's kind of contract with her friends. But what they did, they turned up in this kind of shonky old, it was M or N Reg, 1974 or 75, 1500 TC, the Triumph Dolomite shape, in white, the Triumph white colour that they always used to paint them in. Turned up outside the house. He said, look, the scrap man's going to come and pick it up later on. And I was in the driveway. I said, what's wrong with it? He goes, nothing. Just, I can't be bothered to sell it. So I said, well, I'll have it then. So he gave me the logbook. I said, yeah, it's yours then. Well, actually, it was my dad's, but... So I got this car. I can't remember what I was going to say about the Triumph now. Oh, yeah, bodges. So I welded, actually no, the front wing had a huge hole in it. Outer wing, big rusty hole. So the bodge with that was I just layered a big sheet of glass fibre mat over the top of it, and did that. I did weld the sill, so the sill got welded up. I got another door from the breakage yard because most of the door bottom was missing. And then I took it along for an MOT. The MOT was imminent on running out. And this was at... There used to be a MOT testing station just outside Tolworth I used to go to. And he went over it twice. He said, look, I can't believe this thing's almost passed. He said, it's such a shed. You know, I don't want to pass it. But he said, I'm going to fail it because you haven't got a dust cap on the passenger side hub, front hub. So if you're aware, when you've got the hub that the studs come out, the wheels bolt onto, inside that there's a bearing, and you should have like a cap, dust cap, that goes over the outside of it, and it went missing. And he said, I'm going to have to fail it because, like, you know, you haven't got a dust cap. Well, I wouldn't have noticed it if you'd have put the hubcaps on it. Well, I had two hubcaps on this car. But there wasn't one on that particular corner for one reason or another. I hadn't even thought about it. So he said, that's the only thing that's wrong with it, is you're missing the dust cap. And I said, well, I'll go and get one and I'll be back. He said, yeah, good luck with that. And I thought he was taking the piss. I mean, even then, and that was probably about 86, 87, unobtainium. Not a fucking chance in hell. So they were rear-wheel drive Dolomites. And for some reason, those hub caps, the little dust caps on the front, I don't know if they were unique, but I couldn't find one in the scrapyard because all the cars in the scrapyard either had them missing or they had front-wheel drive Toledo type cars. I went to go and see Albert, the notoriously bad-tempered parts counter manager at Unipart in Chessington. He was a character. I didn't used to like winding him up. I mean, maybe you thought I did, but I didn't used to like winding him up. But anyway, he's kind of like, you go and tell him what you want. I want a dust cap for this car. And this is before the days of giving him a registration number, so he couldn't look it up on his computer. It was all through microfiche and stuff. Anyway, he sauntered off thinking it's going to waste like 20 minutes of his time for a £2.50 dust cap. And he came back almost euphoric, no longer available, NLA. He didn't used to say that, he's not available, or NLA. Oh, really? Better scrap it then, hadn't I? British fucking Leyland. So in the end, I mean, this thing just was not happening. And I wanted to get this car done because I wanted to drive it. So in the end, my bodge, this is the bit you're waiting for here. So the bodge was, I thought, well, I can't just put a hubcap on that side because he's still going to fail it because he's going to say, it's still missing, but you've put a hubcap over it. So I can't take the hubcap off because I'm an MOT tester, so I'm still going to fail it on the grounds that all you've done is stuck a hubcap over the top because I know these bits are impossible to find. So what I actually did was I took the hubcap off the driver's side. Then I removed the dust cap from the driver's side and put the hubcap back on and put the dust cap on the passenger side. Drove it back to the garage. I said, I got one. And he came out, he said, where the hell did you find that? So, that's for me to know. If I told you that, you'd know as much as I know. Anyway, he passed. He actually passed, you know, he was really unhappy about it, but he passed it. The MOT passed. Good bodge, eh? Sometimes you've got to think a little bit outside the box. I mean, I wouldn't have done it on anyone else's car, but for my car. And I knew that I had to still find that cap. And I think I did find one in the end. I don't know where I got it from in the end, but because I just lived in Atkinson's Breakers Yards at Collier's Wood, I just went round just looking at all the cars, and I found something that was roughly the right sort of shape, and with a file I was able to get it to fit, and then just belted it on. I don't think it was ever going to come off again, but it went on. Wife's Golf, when I got that, no, that was fine. I mean, I've not actually had that many cars. For someone who likes driving cars, I tend to hang on to cars for an awfully long time. So, I mean, from the beginning, I had my 105e Anglia. Then I got my Stag, first Stag, the blue one. Then I had a company car, Cavalier. I think the 1500 TC came along at the same sort of time. I bought and sold an Anglia same day, made 25 quid out of it. It didn't even move. It didn't move a millimetre. I just bought it and then sold it straight on. P6, that came along. That was a nice car, that 22 SCA. But it's just solid, really nice. Rust free as well. I bought it from new. And then I sold the lot to buy my first house. Still had the Cavalier. Kept the Cavalier. Lost the job in Manchester. Housing market crash. Moved back down to home. That was a disaster. When you've had 2 or 3 years of living on your own, don't ever move back in with your parents. What a nightmare. Still had the Cavalier. No other car. Then I moved into, because I went to the office and said, look, someone must have a room they can rent me because I can't live at home any longer. Just driving, my mother and me we were about to kill each other, I'm sure of it. I'm pretty sure I wasn't easy to live with. Anyway, so my mate Damien said, yeah, I've got room in my flat in Amersham, bloody. So I moved there. And then I bought the Stag I've got now, the white Stag. Still had the Cavalier. And then the Cavalier by this time was 5, maybe 6 years old, with 180,000 miles on the clock. Good car that was, I did like it. Mark II Cavalier, one of the very last of the Mark II Cavaliers. It was a 1.6L, but it had like a GL interior apart from the dash. And my boss was giving me a car allowance to run that to and from Basingstoke. So it was a 100-mile round trip each day to go to work. And he kind of complained that I was driving around in a 5-year-old car and they were giving me, I don't know, £200 a month car allowance. I should have told him to fuck off. But I went along to, where did I go to? Oh, I'll tell you where I went to. I went to Vauxhall because I thought, you know what, I'll get the last of the Mark III Cavaliers before the distressingly awful Vectra first came out. So I went along to Vauxhall. I knew my missus by then, so I'm not sure she was a wife. No, she wasn't. She was a girlfriend then. I was still living in Amersham. So we went along to Vauxhall and we found a ex-demonstrator loaded. It was GLS Cavalier, 2 litre. And the deal at the time was, this is a Vauxhall dealership in High Wycombe, on the London Road in High Wycombe. And the deal then was, if it moves, we'll give you £1,000 on, for a trade-in. So I went in there and kind of like, you take me Cavalier then as a part exchange. Yeah. No problems at all. So we went and looked at the Cavalier. Yeah, it had all the toys, all the bells, all the whistles, everything on it. The missus quite fancied the Mondeo. And so we went down to Ford's and looked at a burgundy Mondeo. M-Reg. So second year of production? No, third year. So it's second year of production, M-Reg. Because I think they started at K, didn't they? End of K, and then into L. And this was a 95 car. No, 94 car. I don't know. Anyway, talking bollocks again. Well, that's what this channel's about now. This is what this video's about, talking bollocks and drinking beer. Anyway, so we looked at this Mondeo, and my wife liked the Mondeo. She said it was much more comfortable, but I liked all the toys in the Cavalier, and it had a CD player. Oh, the days of a CD player. It was, you knew you were king of the hill when you had a CD player in your car. Anyway, so we went in and we were kind of like just talking, because my missus, well, she was a girlfriend then, so we agreed that, yeah, we're going to go with the Cavalier. So we went back, said, right, we'll have the Cavalier, we'll have £1,000 deposit on there. I've got another £1,000 I'll lob towards it, and I think there's about £3,000 in balance. My wife is merciless. If you ever see my wife coming into a car showroom and you happen to be a salesman, hide. She'll have the shirt off your back. She's ruthless. I can't be in a room when my wife is negotiating with car salesmen. It just brings tears to my eyes. But anyway, she was being quite kind on this particular occasion. And the salesman was like, she was bargaining hard. And the salesman was like, oh, do you mind if our mechanics just have a quick look at your car? I said, yeah, of course they can. It's here, it's just outside the front. So I heard it go into that. You know, when you've had a car for, I think it was about 5 years, and you've done 180,000 miles in it, you know what it sounds like when it starts up, don't you? You know every noise that car makes. Anyway, I heard this thing start up, and I heard it like revving really, really, really hard. Now, that car didn't have a rev limiter, so they were basically just running it as hard as they possibly could, foot to the floor, for about 10-15 seconds. Then it stopped, and I'm like, that was my fucking car, that was my fucking car. Salesman came back, so the mechanic says, your head gasket's gone. So I'm not fucking surprised if you do that to it. Anyway, you wouldn't have it. The salesman would not have it. And he said, well, they're going to drop the trading price to 500 quid. I said, fuck that. I want to speak to your manager right now. So no, the head gasket's gone, blah, 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 blah. So I just heard you start this fucking car up and rev the arse off it. I probably didn't swear then because I was much more polite. Rev the arse off it in your bloody workshop, one of your hairy arse grease monkeys. And you've blown the bloody engine. You've blown the head gasket. I was hopping mad. I don't like waste, you see. I've always had this mentality of kind of like, I'll always keep something because it'll always be useful at some point. And I don't chuck a car away when it is absolutely on its last legs. And this car was not. Anyway, so eventually I just sat there, arms folded. I said, I can speak to your sales manager now. And eventually he huffed, and you could see he knew he was out of his depth. Way out of his fucking depth. Should have spotted the shiny suit when I first walked in, shouldn't I? Sorry to all you car salesmen out there, you're not all the same, I know. But anyway, the sales manager came down, and he backed up the story of, well, no, the head gasket's gone, I'm afraid we can't offer you the full £1,000, despite the fact we advertise £1,000 trading guaranteed as long as you can drive it here, because the head gasket's gone. I mean, in all honesty, the car was worth 200 quid. So I said to him, look, this is the story now. I know that your mechanic in the garage started my car up because I could recognise it from a mile away and revved the bollocks off it. And there was no problems with it before. You have to take my word for that. And now it's got a head gasket failure. So I'm putting two and two together and thinking this was a malicious activity, pardon me, on your part to make a little bit of money out of me. So he refused to say it. I said, do you know what? Bring my car back outside, I'm going. So I left. I was already there to sign the dotted line, take this other car away. And I drove, I don't know, barely a quarter of a mile to the Ford garage. And it was blowing white smoke out of the exhaust. I went into Ford's and I charged through the door. The sales guy that I had been speaking to said, is that Burgundy Mondeo still available? Yes, he said. I told him exactly what had happened. And he says, that's shocking. And I said, I'm pissed off. I said, do you offer me £1,000? Absolutely, he said. I said, well, I'll buy it now then. So I did. I bought the Burgundy Mondeo, and that's how I got my Burgundy Mondeo. Anyway, it took him a day or two because my missus wanted she wanted the full valet, and she wanted the, this, that, and the other, and the bunch of flowers, and the full tank of fuel, and the 12 months road tax. She just, anyway, I'm not going to go there. So I went back a couple of days later and picked the car up. I went back. First journey in this car was back to Vauxhall. And as I walked through the door, the sales manager came rushing up. The other guy was nowhere to be seen. The sales manager came up. He said, look, we're really sorry about what happened. And we're sorry that you kind of like were a bit upset about it. But, we're prepared to up our offer to £600 trade-in. And I said, well, that's all well and good. I said, but I know you guys are lying to me. And, if you want the car for £600, you're going to need to go down to Ford's because they've got it. And he was looking at me like this because I just bought a Mondeo and just turned around and walked off. I can be a bastard sometimes. I'm pretty sure he called me a wanker as I walked out the door as well. Anyway, I probably am. So that was that Mondeo. I had that for 2, maybe 3 years. And then we found out about trade sales. in Slough. I don't know if any of you have ever been to trade sales in Slough. It's like kind of a car supermarket. They're all over the place now, but back then they weren't. And this would have been in 1988 or 89, probably 89, because I went down there because my parents-in-law had just bought a Mondeo that was a year newer than mine, and my missus was not going to have that. And this is probably like the first time I've ever sold a car within a couple of years of actually buying it. And my missus said, "Oh, you should come down and look. They've got tons of cars down there, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah." Anyway, we went down there and they had a black R-Reg, but I think it was 98, Mondeo hatch. Really, it looked the business. It was only a 1.8 LX, so it was kind of the base spec model, not taxi spec, didn't have the sticky seats or anything like that. But it was dirt cheap. It was like about £6,500 against a list of, let's say 16. That's what I think they were then. And it's 3,000 miles on the clock, and the remainder, because it was 3 months old. It was 3 months old. My missus said, "You've got to get that." But there's a reason it's that cheap. I know I bought it. I never found out why it was that cheap, other than the fact it was a Mondeo. It's just a mass-produced car that kind of like depreciates in free fall. But I ran that car for about 4 or 5 years or so. No, I didn't actually. I ran that car for about 2 years. Then my wife got pregnant with twins. That was a surprise. They were born late 2000. And we had to go out and find a car into which we can install my oldest son, he would be 2 at the time, full-size, big, full-size car seat, not a booster seat, full-size car seat. And my twins would have been in rocker tops at the time. And we hunted high and low to try and find a car where we could put those 3 seats across the back using 3-point harnesses. So it's quite a specific requirement here. I mean, like, you know, I'm sure other people have been in this position. We went to a motor show, and there were 2 cars that we found that could do this, because all of the tradesmen, all of the sales guys said, "Yeah, no problems at all." And this is when we found out Vauxhall Saphiras have got 2 2/3 of a seat in the back row. "Oh, don't worry," they said, you can put one of the seats up in the boot." Yeah, well, A, that hasn't got a 3-point harness, and B, where the fuck am I going to put the double buggy? So it kind of got a bit frustrating. We think, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then we found Citroen. I know, I could hear you all groaning. And my missus, she found the Citroen Zara Picasso. And brand spanking new, with her negotiating, we found, first of all, that it had 3 full-size seats across the back. And it had 2 full-size seats in the front. And the boot was enormous. You could lay the double buggy on the floor in the boot. In fact, the boot was so big, 2 of those giant suitcases that you can't put on aeroplanes now, because by the time you half filled them, they weigh 22 kilos. So 2 of those giant suitcases would sit on the boot floor side by side, which was ideal for when we went away on holiday and stuff, because we'd load all the stuff onto the boot floor, then put the double buggy on top, and off we'd go. We did years and years of holidays in that car, but I think Jackie paid, so brand spanking new, 2001, and it was a 51 plate car. I think Jackie paid £10,900 for that car. And that it was so the choice was, because there was 2 cars that we found that could have accommodated the seats across the back, despite everyone else telling us, "Oh no, Range Rover will do it, Discovery will do it, this will do it, that will do it." Either the seats were sculpted so you couldn't put a car seat on, or they were 2 full-size seats and the remains of a seat in between the 2 of them, or they didn't have a shoulder belt on the middle seat. And I think the other car that we found that would work for us was a Mercedes E-Class Estate. Not the saloon, because we couldn't get the double buggy in the boot. So it had to be a Mercedes E-Class Estate. And my missus said, "I'm not driving that. It's ridiculous. We'll have the Citroen." So we got that Citroen, and we had that for, I think she had it for about 5 years. She put a dent in every single panel on that car. Every single piece of trim on the inside was wrecked by the kids. It really was a proper white good. when it comes to abusing cars, I mean, honestly, just pressure wash the inside of it out. Because, you know, my three sons, when they were growing up, they would just spread their food everywhere when they were eating in the car. But it did us. We did holidays all over France in that car. It was well over 100,000 miles we did in that thing. It was a good car. Nothing ever went wrong on it, despite, you know, my missus putting dents in every single panel. And it was while we had that I had Jackie's Golf GTI, because we did a swap, you see. Just after the twins were born, Jackie had my black Mondeo, because she could put, when she was using it at home, she could put one rocker top in the back and Matthew's full-size car seat, and one rocker top, full, you know, rear-facing in the front. And I had her Golf GTI. That was a weapon. What a beautiful car. I should never have sold that. Two cars I should never have sold. That Golf GTI and my first car, the Ford Anglia 105e, I should never have sold them. I should still have those two cars. Those two cars were amazing. And that was an 8-valve Golf as well. And I've said it before, but, you know, the 8-valve Golf, two-door, black, thin bumper, it was just perfection. It was just... Anyway, I did a load of work on that car, because as I started driving it around, I kind of hear, oh, what's that funny clonk? Oh, that doesn't work properly. I ended up kind of rebuilding all the suspension on it and sorted the engine out, so the engine ran beautifully. That car was nailed on when I finished with it. And then, of course, well, you know, so my missus sold my Mondeo to buy the Picasso, the Zara Picasso. So then I had this itch for a Range Rover, which you know about already, and sold her Golf to buy my Range Rover. So I mean, we're like, this so far is my entire driving life. So we've had Anglia. We're talking about cars that I use regularly. Anglia, Stag, Cavalier, two Mondeos, yeah, and then my first Range Rover, second Range Rover. Those are the car daily drivers. And then on top of that, I've had the Stag, I've had the Golf GTI, which is my wife's car, strictly speaking, 1500 TC, my first Stag, P6, 12 cars I've owned in my entire driving career, apart from this lot out here, all these wrecks. So, when it comes to driving disasters and restoration disasters, I've not actually got that many cars to talk about. Oh, poor bloody Golf. I sold it to, there's a lass I used to work with, Australian, and her boyfriend wanted it, and so he bought it. And the first thing that happened to it is it ended up with Lexus rear lights on it. I'm not a stickler for originality, but for fuck's sake. And then he slammed it to the ground. And then it lasted about another 6 months. Bit of a sad end for that car, because it was spotless. High mileage, but spotless. No, it died. Which is a shame, really. That's probably the reason I don't ever bloody sell cars. Because I get an emotional attachment to them, and then I don't really let go. Which is a bit thick, really, isn't it? Because they're only metal. First Range Rover, we've done the... Did I tell you about seizing the engine up? I might have done. I'll go over it again. If I can find it, I'll edit this piece out. But that first Range Rover, I bought it blind, looked good. I'm pretty sure I've told this story, but never mind. Looked good. Shiny, blown over. I know what a blowover looks like now as well. Not that sort of blown. Not on this channel. And it had a problem with the cooling system, that one of the cylinder liners has started to shift, and therefore it was pressurising the cooling system. It's quite a common fault, unfortunately, on the 3.9s and the 4s and the 4.6s in Range Rovers. And I think it's because of the lean fuel mapping, if you to read some of the press on the subject. But I mean, the current cars lasted, what, 194,000 before the head gasket kind of went on it, and it hadn't really gone big time. It had gone, but not horrendously so. And as you saw when I did that job, That was largely because the head had tipped slightly, but then it had blown through into the front waterway. But it recovered. The car, the first Range Rover, 130-ish thousand miles. Who said that? 130-ish thousand miles when I bought it, and it was a bit of a nail. But I learnt about it. But the bodge I did on that car was to just lob K-seal into it rather than fix it. That lasted nearly 40,000 miles. I know every single bodge that I've done on L95, my blue Range Rover, and I wouldn't sell it without remedying those bodges, so don't worry about it. None of those bodges are safety critical. I know it needs 2 new front inner wings, and it needs the back, the boot floor needs doing, and I'll do a video. I'm going to do a series on the restoration of that car. It's going to take me a weekend, maybe a bit longer, 3 days. I don't know, because the other good news is I'm rather hoping that I'm going to get workshop facilities over in High Wycombe, near home. So someone's contacted me, chap I know has contacted me to say he's got a unit. Seems to be the right sort of size. Definitely the right sort of price. So Devon will stay here for the hobby stuff, for my projects, and High Wycombe will be the base for the customer work. I need to get on with it, because I need more customer stuff. That's how I earn money. Disappointments on cars. Let's talk about disappointment cars. Disappointing cars I've driven. Vauxhall Astra GTE 16 valve was disappointing. Burn the heretic, I hear you shouting. Burn the heretic. No, well, back in its day, so this would have been a G-Reg car, 1989 car. And it was in the pool. It was a pool car at work. Because no bugger wanted him. Anyway, my car was out of action. I needed to go and see a customer, so I did this pool car. Pardon me. Anyway, my observations of the 16 valve GTE Astra was that if you wanted to get away quickly, forget it. If you wanted to pull off the line really sharpish, forget it. Because it's just going to sit there thumping its wheels up and down on the ground, bang, 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 and just smoking the tyres out. That's all it did. Once it was moving, it was quite quick. But it wasn't that much quicker than a lot of other stuff on the road. No, I was a bit disappointed with that. It got nicked anyway. Someone nicked the wheels off it and then burnt it out. It was no fucking great loss, that wasn't. Other disappointing cars. Predictably, Volvo 340. I think it was a 1.7. And it drank the fuel that a Jag would drink. And it accelerated like a stagecoach. Oh, swallows are back. Hey, must be that. It's the next family's looking to move in. I'm going to have to get out of here in a minute because they're going to crap all over me. Volvo 340. Other cars I didn't like. Not that many. Cars I did like. I did like the Mark III Granada. Did you see that? That's what they do. Mark III Granada. The big bubbly one. Not the wide-mouthed frog. Not the Scorpio. But the Mark III Granada. Dad had one of those. 1.8 automatic. I'll tell you what, that thing had so much room in it. And it was so comfortable. Wasn't particularly quick. I mean, kind of you can measure it in glacial speed, but it was so comfortable. I had a 3-litre Senator. That was a laugh. That was a company thing. So my boss, oh, that was disappointing. That was a disappointing. My boss got, when the XJ40 first came out, because my dad had an XJ6. It was a B-Reg XJ6. Whatever that would be, 84, I guess. XJ6 Jag. It wasn't the Sovereign, but it was just a solid car, lovely car. Anyway, the XJ40 came out, My boss, when I lived in Manchester, he got one. Said, right, I'm having this Jag, I'm having this blah, 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 blah. Larry, if you're out there, sorry, mate. Anyway, he got this Jag, and like he used to like, this was the car that he would like, you know, if you did a good job, take the Jag out. I did a good job, took the Jag out, and it felt a bit flat. I've driven my dad's, you know, XJ6, 4.2, straight six. And it just felt a bit flat. And I thought, well, maybe it needs running in or something. You know, I lifted the bonnet up on it. There's only one fucking cam cover. What the fuck is going on in here? No, that was a 2.9. I think it was a good job when Jaguar got rid of that 2.9 straight six and replaced it with the 3.2. And then the 3.6 evolved into the 4 litre, and then it got his performance back. But that 2.9, and it probably had fish tanks on the front as well. No, it was, and a cloth trim. It had cloth trim. That was the other disappointing thing. When you open a Jag door, you expect kind of theatre, don't you? Really? No, cloth tweed trim. The fuck is this? Other cars that I drove from work, SRI Mark II Cavalier. That was a hoot. I enjoyed that. That was fun. That was a fun car to drive. That belonged to Steve, the sales manager, sales director. He might have been. Steve had that. Red. That was a nice car. Drove that to Southend and back. Lost a big chunk of the front bumper on the way back. Favourite car? That's a good one. My favourite car. Well, you expect me to pick my favourite car out of the 2 daily drivers, the Stag or the Range Rover? I'm not going to do it. Different animals. It's like picking your favourite apple when there's a pear on the plate. Favourite car I've ever owned? Probably the Range Rover, the L95 Range Rover. Just the most comfortable, accomplished car I've got. Not into kind of, you know, G-force round corners and shit like that. I just like, it just does everything I want it to do. Dream car. There's a good one. My dream car. There's only one. It's a Ferrari, sorry to disappoint, 365 GTB4, the Daytona. Oh, just unbelievably gorgeous looking car. Ah, right, we're out of battery. Might have to go and get another battery. Just a gorgeous car. We've been doing this for quite a long time, so I might actually wrap up here and say, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that. It's been fun. Give me some questions below, or email me some questions, churchhouseclassics, it's all one word, @gmail.com. Email me some questions. If you fancy buying me a drink or supporting the channel, there's a link in the video below in the description to my PayPal me account thing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe for more. If you like this kind of content, please. Thumbs down if you wish. Let me know why if you dare. You know, thank you. Stay safe, stay sane.